Okay, folks, so let's get cracking. So this particular webinar is called Discover the Right Career Path. Now, maybe you are doing a job that you love, and maybe you want to continue on that, and maybe you want to change it. Or maybe you really don't know what you really want to do in your life. Maybe you were like me when I was in, just finished school, last year of school, supposed to fill out the college application form, no clue what to put down, first conversation ever with the French teacher who was a guidance counselor, and he said, what would you like to do? And I said, well, I know somebody who did business. And I thought, well, you know what, why don't I just put down that? That's a nice general course. And I ended up in business studies and personnel management. It's nice, it was nice, but it didn't particularly drive me. It didn't particularly motivate me in life. I knew there was something else, something that I was more meant for. And that's how I've done a lot of work to basically keep myself on my own particular path, which is coaching and helping people. That's my personal career path. Okay? So who else we got there? Nadine from London. Hi Nadine. Love London. Absolutely love London. But I want to go up in that circular thing. What do you call that? The London's Eye. I want to get on that thing at some point in the future. Okay. So if you are working in a job 9 to 5 to pay your bills, nothing wrong with that. It might not be your ideal career, but nothing wrong with that, as long as you keep in mind what you personally would love to achieve. So for example, if you are working in an office, but your goal is to maybe someday start your own business or become a business manager, well then you keep working on your doing and just keep working towards that goal. Okay? If you are somebody who wants to get into property, now maybe you don't have money for a deposit for a property, but you just keep working on that, and then you'll eventually get where you want to go once you do the right actions. All right? Maybe you're a musician and you've just wanted to play music, but then the lockdown hits, you can't do any performances, but you keep that goal in mind so that you can get back into action. So tonight, what we're going to go over are 5 things. Okay? I'm going to go over 3 of them in detail. 2 of them not so much, and the very last thing that I'm going to go over is the point of this webinar, and what I believe is the central thing that you need to handle to make sure that you're on your right path and you stay on it. Okay, so let's get started. Now, I'm going to be taking a couple of little quotes from this book. The first one is about, so this is number 1, okay? This is what we're going over, topic 1. So, there is one thing and one, let's say we could call it a career, or we can call it a goal. There's one thing that we all want to do in life. And this is something you have to consider when you are deciding about your career path. It's something that you have to consider. We're going to get more personal about it in a minute. I'm going to read to you this little quote from page 26 of the Dianetics book for anybody who has it. The goal of life can be considered to be infinite survival. Man as a life form can be demonstrated to obey in all his actions the one command, survive. It is not a new thought that man is surviving. It is a new thought that man is motivated only by survival. Now, what does this mean? This means that you have a goal to survive. What does survive mean? It means to continue in existence at a better and better level, to continue to exist, to live. That's what survival means. Now, if you're not surviving, there is an opposite to that. Okay? Who can tell me what the opposite is? If you're fast on the chat, I generally go very fast on these webinars. So if you're fast typing, pop in what you think is the opposite of survive. Anyone want to pop it in? Because I'm going to the board. I'm going to put this in red. The opposite of survive is, I'm going to put it on a shorter channel. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Violetta. Totally. Death. I'm sorry, this is a bit morbid. I mean, you came to this webinar thinking, oh, Vincent's going to cheer me up. I'm going to find out what my real career path is, and here he is talking about death. death and destruction. Terrible. Okay, so you have this goal to survive. You want to survive. You want to keep going. And you want to stay away from this. So, up in survive, you have this thing called pleasure. So how do you know you're surviving? You're experiencing pleasure. You're experiencing happiness. Now, we're not talking about just, temporary pleasure, like you drink a bottle of vodka and you experience pleasure. That's more going towards this direction. So I'm talking about genuine pleasure, a feeling of delight, a feeling of happiness, a feeling like, you know what, I'm getting where I want to go, satisfaction. So in survive, you're going to experience this thing called pleasure. If you're surviving, and the more you're surviving, you're going to experience more and more pleasure. If you go down this direction, who wants to put down what the opposite of pleasure is? Anybody want to type it in really quick? The opposite of pleasure is, fast typers, going once, going twice, gone. Pain. Now, so the opposite of survival is, the opposite of pleasure is pain. So if you're experiencing this pain and it's continuous, look, if you go to a dentist, and he pulls out your tooth, you might experience pain, but it's something going on the way towards pleasure. But if you're going and experiencing this on a more regular basis, let's say you're eating Snickers bars every 12 hours, okay? Very soon, you're going to start to experience pain because you're heading in this direction, not that direction, okay? So down here you have pain. Now, this section pushes you that way. So there is what we call a repelling force. This repels you. So you are repelled from death. You go to the dentist because you want to stay away from the pain of bad teeth or teeth that are cavitied. Okay? You stay away from too much alcohol because you don't like the pain of 2 days worth of a hangover. And you stay away from, let's say, gambling your family's money because you want to stay away from the pain of your wife leaving you and your kids going as well. Now, up here, so we have a repelling force that pushes you that way. And this one, okay, this is an attracting force. Okay, so in life, you are attracted towards pleasure and you are repelled from pain. Now, there are 4 little segments in this section here that also apply in this direction. I'm not going to draw them here, but I'm just going to show you what they are. So there are 4 little segments that you have to consider when you decide what you want to do with your life. You have to consider these things. So we have this general thing of survive, okay? So you might say, you know what, I'm going to do whatever it takes to survive. Okay, fine. But there are 4 breakdowns in this area, okay? The first one okay, so we're going to make this into a bigger arrow. The whole thing is survival, but this one is yourself. You have a goal to survive yourself. You want to have a nicer car, you want to have a healthy body, you want to be doing things that you enjoy. You want to have nice things. You want to live in a nice house. You like going for walks. You have your own pastimes. You have a desire to keep yourself going. This is why you eat every day. This is why you sleep, because you want to survive yourself. The next area is family. Now that includes relationships. So you want your partner to survive, your sexual relationship to survive. You want your kids to survive. You want them to do well. You want them to expand and you want them to grow. The next section we have is your group. Okay? The people that you work with, you want to see them doing well. You don't want to see them going down here. And in fact, if you have somebody in your workplace that's very, very ill, it can affect you. That's because it's part of you that's going down in this direction as opposed to that direction. So you have a desire to survive as part of a group and for your group. And then the last one, which some people ignore, but a lot of people don't, is mankind. So you do have an urge to survive for mankind, and you do have an urge for mankind to continue on surviving. Now we have a little name for these, and we call these in Dianetics the dynamics. Okay? And the dynamics are basically your urges to survive in these different areas of your life. So when you're making a decision about a career or what you want to do in your life, consider this. Any solution, this is from page 44 of the Dianetics book, any solution modified by the time available to put the solution into effect, it depends on how old you are, young you are, and so forth, how much time do you have available. Any solution modified by the time available to put the solution into effect should be creative or constructive for the greatest possible number of dynamics. So whatever it is that you decide upon, it's going to have to be creative, or constructive for the maximum amount of these. For the maximum. So you've got 4 here, so 3 out of 4. It's got to be more constructive than it is destructive. So let's say, for example, your goal in life, you've decided yourself, you know what? I have such an interest in chemistry. What I would really, really love to do with my life is I'd love to get involved in the production and making of bombs. That just gives me so much pleasure. Okay, so you make bombs, and maybe that gives you pleasure in terms of yourself. And maybe because you're making bombs, you're also making a lot of money, so that gives family pleasure. But if you look at these 2 areas, for your group and mankind, it's more destructive. It would be more destructive to take on a role like that. So when you're deciding what you want to do, it has to be constructive for the majority of these. All of them if possible, but definitely the majority. Now let's say if you decide, you know what, I really want to develop an internet facility which older people can use. Good. So you're really interested in it yourself, it's giving you pleasure. It's helping your family and your kids because you're earning more money, you've got more time, you're spending more time with your kids, you're spending more time with your partner, and your partner likes being driven around in a nice car. Your group, you're part of a really good group that's all on the same page, and you're actually doing something for mankind. So whatever decision that you make, you do have to consider these things. Even if your goal is to be, let's say, an artist. You want to be an artist, okay? So when you're deciding about your art, let's say you're a musician and you want to have this performance of music and so forth, okay? So you decide that you're going to play music in Iceland, all right? But your family's in Ireland, and you would have much more of an influence if, let's say, you started off in Ireland and you moved to the UK and America as opposed to Iceland. You know what I mean? So in other words, you can still have that purpose to be a musician, but maybe going to Iceland might not be the best solution. Anybody from Iceland, I'm just imagining this, so if you know anybody from Iceland, there's no offense to Icelandic people. But you do have to consider these factors no matter what it is that you are doing. Okay? So, I have a question for you, and this is the first aspect of this. To summarize this, whatever career path you take, whatever decision that you make about what you want to do, and we're going to go over how you can uproot the personal goal in a minute, has to be balanced off by these things here. If you decide you're going to be a farmer, if you decide you're going to make igloos in Alaska, okay? Igloos. You're going to make igloos. That's what you want to do. Passionate about igloos. But none of your family want to move to Alaska. There's nobody living up there and where you're going. And, you're not going to have a massive influence on mankind. It might not be the right place to go. Maybe you need to decide that you want to make wooden igloos in Ireland or something, if there is such a thing. So, here's the first exercise. What I want you to do right now is this. I want you to consider these areas. Yourself, what you're doing for yourself, what you're doing for your family, your partner and your kids, or your brothers and sisters, your parents, what you're doing for your group, and what you're doing for mankind. And I want you to let me know which of these areas you are strongest in. Which of the areas you are strongest in. Because in the last section, I'm going to go over the thing that prevents you from being strong in the other areas. So I'd like you to put down in the chat, which of those areas are you strongest in? Like, are you passionate about group more than family? And some people are, they are. Some people are more passionate about family than they are about group. Some people are totally dedicated to mankind, but they ignore themselves and they ignore the family. So if you focus too much on just one of them and ignore the rest, that's not a great thing either. But I want to find out, what is the area of your life that you are strongest in? Okay. Thank you. Lara, I hope you are getting the issue of the sound fixed. Okay. Brian, family. Thank you. Paul, family. Thank you very much. Violetta, I'm sorry if I pronounce it wrong. Mankind, thank you. Tobias, family. Daphne, group. Nadine, mankind, family. Nadine, mankind. Mary, family. Nicola, family herself. Lisa, children, which would be family. Good. Fiona, family. Excellent. Right. So, these are areas that you are strongest on. So, your purpose and your goal and your career path is somewhere being fulfilled in those areas. Now, what happens with people is they get focused on just one area because there are blockages on the creativity in the other areas. So, if you've mentioned family here, you have a strong purpose for family, okay? It's an indication that you're on the right path on that if you feel strong in that area. It's the same with mankind. Violetta mentioned mankind. Somebody else did as well, I think. Nadine as well. You have a strong purpose on that. Okay? So it indicates that there's a correct area that you're working on. But it's really important that even though you're strong on these areas, you do have to make sure everything's balanced. It's nicely in harmony. Because if, let's say, you only focus on family, let's say you're a mother and you only focus on the kids, all right? And all your life is kids, but you ignore self. It's in the long term, it's going to have a negative effect, potentially, or if you ignore going out with your group or doing something with mankind. And it's the same way if you're only focused on yourself, but you ignore these. It's not that there's anything wrong with creating these, it's just that in the long term, the negative effect tends to show up. So the first thing here is that whatever career path you take, you are strong in certain areas, you need to kind of build on those other areas as well. Okay, folks, thank you so much for these. Now, let's go on to part number 2. So this is part number 1. The basic message is the goal is to survive, and these have to be all incorporated into what it is that you want to do with your life. Okay? Some people say, oh, he's only thinking about himself. Well, it could be the case that he's strong on that area, but he's very weak on that area, on those areas. Or he only thinks about work. My husband only thinks about work. Well, maybe he's very strong in that area, but he's ignoring all these, and there's a reason for that, which I'm going to go into in the last section. Okay, so I hope that gives you a bit of a picture. Let's move on to the next bit. Now we're going to go over something, so we're going to put down number 1 as survive, okay? Now, number 2, we're going to go into basic purpose. Okay, we're going to go into basic purpose. Now, this is from page 292 of the Dianetics book, and it's a footnote. This is a test that the author made on 15 people and found the same results in each one of those 15 people. When I read this, I went, you know what, this totally makes sense. And when I read this to you about your basic purpose, I think it's going to make sense to you as well. So listen to this. It is a clinical fact. Now, clinical means related to observation and practice, not just theory. It is a clinical fact that the basic purpose is apparently known to the individual before he is 2 years of age. Okay, so we have, there's 0, age 2, and there's the person in present time, okay? So this is age 2. And basic purpose is known to the individual. So if you don't know what your basic purpose is, what is it you really, really want? What are you meant for? What are you destined for? If you don't know, you did know when you were 2. So let me just continue on here. It is a clinical fact that the basic purpose is apparently known to the individual before he is 2 years of age. Talent and inherent personality and basic purpose go together as a package. So we have basic purpose here, plus talent, plus inherent. Inherent just means kind of part of your makeup. An inherent personality go together as a package. And I'll show you this in a minute and how it kind of fits in, right? Talent and inherent personality and basic purpose go together as a package. They seem to be part of the genetic pattern. Genetic basically means what you've inherited from your family, your parents and so forth. Anyone can be revivified Dianetically. Revivified basically means while wide awake, return to a moment in the past. Okay? Anyone can be revivified Dianetically in the age of 2 years and consulted about his purpose in life. And he will come forth with a very specific desire as to what he wishes to accomplish in life. Imagine that. This child knows, I want to, and knows what they want to achieve. Imagine that. And I think it's realistic for you as you're reading this, because when I ask you for examples, people will come up with these. Okay, so, and he will come forward with a very specific desire as to what he wishes to accomplish in life, and 2-year-old activity as reviewed confirmed it. It will be discovered that his later life followed this general pattern wherever he succeeded. So in other words, if the child is following that path, okay, in instances where the child or the teenager or the adult is successful, they are following this basic purpose. Okay? So along this basic purpose, you have success. So you see people who are very, very successful with children, for example. Very, very successful, very good at children. It's a very good indicator that they're on that basic purpose. Or if you have somebody who's a very successful business person, okay? Again, he's still on that same channel. Now, on the opposite end, if you have a person who is in different areas, like, let's say his purpose was to be a musician, but he's, I don't know, running a business. Well, he's going to be kind of off track here. He's going to be trying off track, so there's much more of a chance for failure, okay, if he's not on that basic purpose. So when you're on your basic purpose, the chances of success are much, much higher. Okay? So it will be discovered that his later life followed this general pattern wherever he succeeded. Of 15 persons examined, the basic purpose was found formed at 2 years of age, and when cleared, I'll go over cleared shortly in the end of this, these persons used and pursued that basic purpose. So in other words, if the guy was muddy up here, when the stuff was cleared up, which I'm going to go over, a person rehabilitates generally their failed purpose or their purpose in life and follows through on that. Now, a couple of examples. I know people and I know kids who, at the age of 2, were very, very, very interested in putting things together. Okay? Making things, constructing things. That same individual or the same individuals have turned out to be very successful in those fields, like engineering, like architecture, these kind of design type things. Okay? So you'll see the child at 2 years of age working with things. That basic thing is going to be one of their genuinely followed paths. If you have a child who loves to help their mother with cooking, she's a kid and he loves to help his mother with cooking and is cooking all the time, okay? And it makes him happy. Well, the funny thing is, a lot of those kids turn into chefs. Because years and years ago, and the mother will be able to remember it. I remember when you were 2 years of age, you used to help me out in the kitchen all the time, and now look at you, you're a successful chef. The same applies to artists and musicians and painters. When they're small kids, they're into creativity, they're into performing. And then years later, they end up in those arts. Okay, so what I'd like you to do, this is your next exercise. I'd like you to take a moment to think about this. I want you to think about somebody in your life who has been on their basic purpose for years. Okay, maybe you might not remember since they were a kid, but if you do, that's even better. Think of somebody that you know who has been following their basic purpose since they were a kid or for a very long time and are very, very good at it. Okay? So just think of somebody in your life that you know. You don't have to put names, but if you could just put in the chat a little example of what you've thought of, maybe a friend or a family member, or even yes, I don't mind, is just to let me know that you can see that. So just take a moment to think about somebody in your life that you know, that knew what they wanted to do and has been following that basic purpose and is very, very successful on it. Okay? And if you don't mind popping it in the chat, that would be most appreciated. Because then we're going to go into, when we're done with this, once you do have that basic purpose, what are the big blocks that you run into? And what do children run into? The biggest blocks that children run into. Okay, Brian, Ken, thank you. Friend, Paul, daughter, wonderful, wonderful. And it's interesting to see kids, you're standing back looking at kids and you can see them developing and you can see them following their purpose. And that purpose, you can remember it from an early age, what they used to do, and you can see it building in that person. And wherever you nurture that basic purpose, that child is going to grow and grow into that successful person. Whereas if you steer them away from that basic purpose, they tend to get a little bit off track, Okay, thank you, Paul. Nadine, cousin, thank you. Tobias, colleague, wonderful. Fantastic. And you can see it in other people. They might not even see it in themselves. They might not, because often people just can't look inwards, but other people can see it from the outside. So that's wonderful. Nadine, cousin. Tobias, colleague. Fiona, your sister. Wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah, it's quite interesting. And it's really important to be able to uncover your basic purpose. And that's what we're going to go into tonight. And also when you see a child or somebody that you know is operating on that basic purpose, if you're a mother and you have a child and you know they're operating, you know that they've got this desire for art or performance or cooking or cycling or engineering or whatever it is, or teaching, that you nurture that, Even when they go off track a bit, you nurture it. And you'll see them developing into very, very successful individuals. Okay, folks, thank you so much for those examples. So that's number 2, basic purpose. Now, one last thing on this. I mentioned that these 3 go together as a package. Okay, so basic purpose and talent and personality go together. So, for example, if you have a child who's interested, his basic purpose is to entertain. Okay? That kid's personality is going to be very outgoing and and their talent is also going to be present to do those things. If the child has a purpose to fix things, okay, that's their basic purpose. They want to create structures. Their inherent personality is going to be kind of around that. They might be a little bit quieter, but they're usually very analytical. And their talent, again, will be present. So once you unlock that basic purpose, the basic talent comes out and the basic personality comes out again. They're a package, okay? So it's really important to know that once you do rehabilitate that, these things come out. Okay, next. So we're now going to go into stops. And by the way, if anybody's any questions, just pop them into the chat. I'm going to try to get through everything before 9. If anybody's any questions after 9 o'clock, I'll be finishing at 9. But if anybody wants to stay on for any questions, please feel free to do so. I'll be leaving the chat open for about 10 or 15 minutes to answer any questions, okay? Now, so the next thing we're going to go into is stops. What is it that stops you from going over your basic purpose or fulfilling your basic purpose? Now, I'm going to briefly touch on two of these, and the main one, which is the point of my webinar tonight, we're going to go over in more detail. Okay, so here's a child, okay, and they want to, make art, okay? They want to make art, they want to do painting. All right, now there's a couple of major barriers that they run across on this very strong basic purpose. And the very first one is school, okay? Now, we know school is necessary, okay? Because otherwise, how are you going to learn things? How are you going to interact? How are you going to, grow? So you do need education. Even if a child has a basic purpose for art, they're going to need to know the specifics. What type of colors are there? What type of backgrounds and surfaces and shades and all sorts of things. So they go to school. Now, school is a good thing, except for the fact that quite often children run into this thing, and that is study problems. Okay? In other words, they have problems studying because they do not know the basics on how to study. Okay? So, when they can't study, they think, you know what, I don't really know this. I don't think I can be any good at it. So what happens is, they get steered off their basic purpose. Okay? And so it's really important for children to get the basics on how to study properly. Clear words that are not understood is really important. Make sure there's enough physical representation of the thing you're studying and not to go too steep at one time. So these are really, really important. That's the biggest barrier that they hit first. They start thinking they're stupid or they're no good and that they're not good enough for this, whereas they actually are underneath. The only thing was the study problems. Okay, next one. Next barrier is suppression. Suppress, okay? Now what I mean by suppress is I mean that as they grow up, they are going to encounter people who want to put them down, shove them down, and make them feel no good. Artists, for example, seem to be a magnet for people who want to put them down. Why? In my opinion, it's because artists are communicators. They want to build a better world, and for some reason, certain types of people just don't want to see that happening. They don't want to see other people growing. So the child runs into people in school, could be a neighbor, could be a family member, could be a school kid, could be a work colleague, but they run into people who try to put you down and make you doubt yourself. Okay? So the effect of this is doubt. They make you doubt yourself. Are you really doing the right thing? So the child comes along, he's a teenager, he's doing really, really well, he's pursuing his goal as an artist, and there's one guy in the classroom who just wants to see him fail. And so, works on him, directly or indirectly, bringing him out to the pub every night and, don't bother with your art tonight, hey, let's go and get absolutely hammered drunk. Instead of, because I know you have a presentation tomorrow, but don't worry about it. Kind of an indirect suppression. So the result of this is it makes the child or the person uncertain about what they want to achieve. And again, it steers them off track. And when they lose that basic purpose and they lose sight of it, he loses this goal of art, and then he goes on to some other track. Like maybe he decides then I want to become, a fireman, but that's not his basic purpose. Okay. Now, I said I was only going to touch on these two things. There are things that you can learn about these, and it's very important to do so, but I just wanted to touch on them because they are relevant. The next thing is the most important thing to know when you want to rehabilitate your basic purpose and to be able to follow it so that you can decide what your career path is. And that's this. So I went over stops, and actually I might just put in to the stop section the little bits here. study and suppression. Suppression just basically means to squash down, to squash somebody down, to put them down. Okay? Now, last thing is the most important, in my opinion, because you can teach a person all about how to study. You can teach a person all about how to deal with negative people, these kind of things. But if you don't handle this thing, it can ruin the whole lot, and it can leave you in a situation where you stick in the same job for 50 years in a job that you hate, and you just are waiting for your retirement. Like, we shouldn't be dying for our retirement to come. You know, we shouldn't be. We should be passionate about life and living every day and doing what we want to do every day to help our lives. Okay, so you have what we call a mind. And your mind is a collection of pictures from your past. A whole big, massive collection of memories. And you use this mind to work out solutions. And you do it very, very quickly. So every single day, you are using your mind to work out things. You're driving to work. You are calculating hundreds of things in your mind all at the same time in order to have a safe journey into work. Okay? When you're handling your kids, you know how each one of them reacts and so forth. So you're working out how to handle this kid, how to handle this kid, what to say to this one, what not to say to this one. You've got it all strategically worked out. This is what we call in Dianetics your analytical mind. Draw it in properly. So this is your analytical mind. That's what we call it in Dianetics. Fantastic. Now, if your mind and your ability to think is in really, really good shape, you're able to think clearly, your solution and your career goal will also be very positive and very accurate. Because you'll be thinking clearly about, you know what do I really want to do? What should I do for my family? What should I do for my group? What should I do for my country? You take into consideration all these things naturally, plus what do I want to do? What makes me happy? What am I interested in? And you're going to make very clear goals for yourself. The problem is there is something messing up your thinking. Maybe not every day, but regularly. And what it does is it clouds up your ability to make a decision about what you think is the correct thing to do, even though deep down, most cases, you know it. You know what you need to do. You know what you need to do next. But there's something in your mind that tells you, don't bother. We know you want to become an artist, but you're not good enough. Now, I'm here to tell you what that is. So where does all this muddiness come from? Where does all this kind of, oh God, I can't think clearly, I couldn't be bothered, you know, sure, I'll do it tomorrow, I never know what I want to do, and sure, I missed all those opportunities in the past, and sure, you know, there's people a lot better off than me, and a lot better than me, and I want to stick what I want to do, no matter what. I hate what I do, but I want to stick it for the next 60 years. What is causing that? This is explained on page 50 of the Dianetics book, and the problem is this. There is a part of your mind which operates beneath your awareness. Okay? It's a part of your mind that operates beneath your awareness. And it can affect your thinking without your consent. And you don't know what's wrong with you. Why am I not thinking clearly today? Why can't I make a decision? Why can't I motivate myself? Why can't I follow through with my decisions? Why can't I follow my career path? Because there's something underneath the surface affecting the way you think. And we have a name for this in Dianetics, and the name we have is called the reactive mind. Okay, now it's called reactive because it's basically push button. The full definition of the Dianetics, of the reactive mind, is explained on page 50. I don't have time to go over all the different parts of it right now, but basically it's a part of your mind that stores up two things: memories of physical pain okay? Primarily these two things. A few other things, but mainly these two things. And loss. Okay. So, it stores up moments of physical and emotional pain. And that information from those incidents gets buried beneath the surface. Why? Because at the time that they happened, the lights went out up here, you became a little bit less aware, and the information went in without you even knowing it. So for example, somebody knocks you over the head with a bat, and while you're unconscious, calls you an idiot. Okay? The lights went out here, and that word idiot is in here. But you can't remember it, but it's still there. Or let's say you lose somebody close to you, a friend or a family member. You hear the news and you just go into shock. That's lowered awareness. Somebody comes along to you and tells you you should stay in the house for 6 months. Those words go in. So in other words, there's a whole package of information stored in a separate compartment in the mind which contains painful moments, records of painful moments from your past. Now, how does this affect you? Vinny, what's this got to do with career? Here's what it has to do with career. This reactive mind is push button. It's a bit like an animal part of the mind. Okay? So, here's a couple of examples. Let's say you as a kid, you wanted to become a fireman. Okay? And you became a fireman. Fantastic. But one day, you almost died in a fire, trying to rescue somebody. Okay? That goes in here as a physical pain incident. And your reactive mind stores that to kind of protect you in the future. So, you recover from your almost death experience, and you go back into the fire station. Okay? I'm going to try and draw a fire station. This is a fire station, okay? And it's a dead giveaway because it says fire station. Thank you very much. I studied Latin instead of art. I did like Latin actually, it was very good. So you go into the fire station after 3 months of being in a very bad way, and you go in and you see the fire hose, you hear the bell going off, you hear people talking about fire. And what your reactive mind does is it tells you, okay, I'm going to protect you now. You don't have any part to play in this, so I'm going to take over. There's enough similarity here to tell me we're in the same situation again. What I'm going to tell you now is get out. So the reactive mind steers you that way. And so, for whatever reason, you're not as motivated to go into work anymore. You don't really like the fire area. You don't really like what you do anymore, and then you decide to do something different. But in actual fact, your basic purpose was to be a fireman. Okay? Now, let's take another example. Let's say you were a kid and you were 10 and you loved to play the guitar. This was your basic purpose. You wanted to play the guitar. But one day, coming home from guitar practice, you met this guy and a couple of his friends who were bullies from the neighbourhood and decided that they wanted to punch the daylights out of you and steal your guitar, hit you over the head with the guitar, take your guitar and your money and your lunch and leave you there on the footpath. Well, okay, it's a physical pain, but it's also a loss. The next time you go into guitar practice, all your reactive mind has to do, now I'm going to attempt to draw a guitar. Okay, wait for this one. Alright, let's see. Okay. I think he's got this. Yeah. I think that's a guitar. Okay, not so bad. Strings. Oh my God, Vincent, you're such an artist. Okay, so you go in and you see your guitar and people are playing music and the teacher's telling you you're going to be a great guitarist, but to your reactive mind, which has stored a bad memory, there's danger there, and what it tells you is, get the hell out of there. And you don't know what's happening. All you know is that you don't feel like going to guitar practice. You don't really think it's for you anymore. You're not really sure if you're any good at it. So your reactive mind steers you away from actual true goals that you have because it thinks that goal is pain, just like the last thing. It's a bit of a moron type of the mind. It doesn't really think, not like the way you normally think. You normally think very, very clearly. Okay, so here is an exercise I have for you, and then we're going to get into the solution. I want you to think about this. Something that happened to you that was on your basic purpose. I want you to give me an example of an incident. Now, this might take a bit of thinking, right? So I'm going to give you a bit more than 30 seconds, about 35 seconds. An incident of a negative nature that happened to you, which was on your basic purpose. So if you were a guitar player, maybe you, I don't know, you lost a big gig or something like that. Or maybe you were a businessman and you had a passion for business, but your business folded and it was a big loss for you. So I want you to think about this for a moment. An example of something that happened to you along your basic purpose. Now, if you don't know what your basic purpose is, let's just say, for the moment, something negative that happened to you along what you really enjoy doing in life. Okay, and if you don't mind popping it in the chat, that would be fab. And then we're going to go into the solution. So I'll just give you a moment to do that. Type fast. An example of something that happened to you on your career path. Accident, operation, maybe you had a big loss, maybe you were working on Wall Street selling stocks and the whole thing crashed, you know. I know it's probably not an easy one to think of, but if you can't think of anything, don't worry about it. If you can, pop it into the chat. If you don't think of something, don't worry. I will move on, and if you do think about something as we move along, you can write it into the chat. Oh, beautiful. I love that one, Nadine. Working with others to learn to trade, and the working group fell apart. Amazing. That's a really, really, really good one. And the reason it's a good one is because life is lived with people, and you work with groups. You know, life is lived with people, and everybody invests that, and there's an amount of love and care that goes into that. So when it falls apart, whether you think it or not, it's actually a loss. And it can be a big loss for somebody. And that loss can stick there and affect the person from going down that path again. Thank you, Nadine. Brilliant example. Okay, Brian, yacht charter business got destroyed with all the shit. Brian, fantastic example, and it's a great example of people who are in the business field. You know, they have a passion to drive forward and create on their business. And with the lockdown and so forth in the last 2 years, people in businesses were absolutely destroyed in many cases, completely destroyed. Massive, massive loss. The fortunate thing about that is, because this reactive mind stores this stuff, it's going to keep it there to kind of prevent you from getting into the same situation again. So if you have an opportunity again, or something similar, there's a chance that this is going to come in and trigger off and tell you, listen, don't bother going down that path. We know what happened last time. Okay? And often without you realizing it. And a private message, let me just read it. Okay. Good. Okay, so somebody sent me the private message. I got that. I read it out to myself. Thank you. I don't want to read it to the group because it was a private message. Thank you. Brian, touche. I don't know what that means. It sounds like touch in French. Touche. Ne touche pas. Don't touch. Okay, Brian, if you clarify that, that would be great. Now, That's the problem. So we've gone over a couple of things, right? We've gone over, you need to incorporate different areas of your life to work out the optimum solution for your career path. Don't go ignoring those different urges, yourself, family, work, and groups, okay? Basic purpose is there for you and for everybody. It just needs to be rekindled, restarted, and uncovered. And part of that has to do with clearing up all this baggage. The stops are, you need to learn the basics on studying and learn how to handle suppression. Very, very important, because these are the two things that can make you start to doubt yourself in a major, major way. Most important thing is to clear up this reactive mind. Because if you don't, you might be fine for a while after you have these bad experiences, but all it takes is something similar to happen again to trigger off the whole thing, and really you don't know what's happening in the background because this is operating underneath the surface. And the proof of that is that when you start to dig it out, things become clearer, and you tend to go for things that you previously thought were unachievable. Okay. Oh, I see. Brian, thank you very much. Touché. Okay. All right. Good. Tobias, moving countries as a child and loss of all friends. A fantastic example. And this is a loss in the area of group. It'd be a loss in the area of groups. And these things can even prevent people from getting into groups because they had a loss in the group in the past, so they don't want to get into groups again, but they don't know why, and that's the reactive mind. Okay, so that's that. Now let's go into the solution. Okay, and let's see how we're doing time-wise. Oh dear, as usual. I kept talking. Okay, so reactive mind. Now, I'm going to very briefly go over this because I don't want to keep you guys late. And but as I said, anybody who wants to finish off at 9 is completely fine. Anybody who wants to hang on later, I might just keep it going for a few minutes after 9, maybe 3 or 4 minutes. And then after that, I'll open it up for question and answer. But if you need to leave at 9, then just go ahead. It's fine. Okay. Now, in Dianetics, we do this thing called auditing. And the word auditing means to listen and to guide. And it's explained in the Dianetics book that I showed you. It's done with 2 people. The person who's delivering it is called an auditor. And the person's job as an auditor is to listen and to guide. That's all. The person who's receiving the help, and this is something that is learned in the Dianetics book, has their eyes closed, and the auditor is helping them to return, while wide awake, to painful incidents in the past, to uncover them, dig them up, and clear them out. Okay? So he's helping the person to return to pain. I mean, that sounds horrible, but it's absolutely necessary to clear it up. And it's done using an exact 10-step procedure, which is explained in the Dianetics book. It's not just done any old way. The name of this person, we have a name for this person in Dianetics, is called a pre-clear. And the reason it's called pre, because it's before, and in Dianetics there's an end result, and that end result is called clear. And a clear is somebody who's cleared up this baggage. And that's what auditing does, and that is what I recommend for people to do in order to recover that basic purpose and to really, really not only find out what you want to do with your own life, but also how to make a decision so that it incorporates all of the areas that are actually essential for your life. Yourself, family, relationships, group, and mankind. Those 4 areas is not just number 1. Although it's not to say that number 1 is not important, but you have to have those 4 things in. So once that stuff is cleared up, the goal is to get you back to a point where you're able to think clearly. You're not stuck in the past and you're not getting triggered by the past. That's what auditing is. And how long does it take, Vincent? It depends. But I have stuck with this for over 25 years for only one reason, and that's because it works. It's very straightforward, it makes sense, and it works. Okay? And that's the only reason. It's not any high-flung, mad ideas about things. It's just basic stuff, how to do it, and it shows you in the book exactly how to do it. So, summarize. Auditing is about clearing the baggage. so that you can think clearly and so that you are able to get your basic purpose. Okay? That is what I recommend for everybody in terms of sorting out what you want to do. If you're in good shape right now, it also applies, because in fact your reactive mind might not be affecting you to a great degree at the moment, but there's a potential for it to get triggered in the future if you're carrying lots of baggage. So auditing is a solution which shows you how to clear up the baggage, and once you do that, you're back to the way you used to be. It's about bringing you back to yourself, not changing you. Okay, now if anybody has any questions, please hang on after the webinar and I will answer any questions that you have. Before we wrap up, okay, I want to tell you about what I would recommend for you if you're interested in improving yourself and taking this further, and I really would love you to do that. So to touch on the points: survival, basic purpose, handle your study, suppression, your reactive mind is a sort of it, and this is about clearing the reactive mind. My webinars that I went over at the beginning, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that now. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop up a little slide to explain what my course is about. It's a 4-part online course and it's delivered on Zoom. So it's called The Mind Explained. It's on Friday between 8 and 9, okay? And there's 4 modules in it, and each module is delivered on a Friday night. So on Friday we deliver one module, the next Friday we'll deliver the next one, and so forth. And they're circular. So if you do enroll tonight, and I'm going to be putting up a link for you later, you can start these modules at any time, and even if you miss one, you'll catch it the next time around. Okay? So I'm going to break this down first. So number 1, this is the first module. Now, it's a wonderful unknown machine, the mind. So here we go over how your mind works and what went wrong with the mind. Okay? What went wrong with your thinking, so that you can help to restore your thinking. So let's move on to part 2. The source of unwanted behavior and emotion. So we go into the real core of the reactive mind and how you got into the state you're in, if it's bad. Part 3. Losses and their effect on the mind. We'll go into this in more detail because people, this is very, very realistic for people. Most of us have had losses of friends or families or businesses or, countries even, if you've changed country. And we go into this a lot more about how losses affect your direction in life. And the last one is the solution. So we go into all the basics that you need to have in place in order to make auditing and Dianetics auditing work. So those are the 4 parts. Those are the 4 modules. They're delivered circularly. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we go back to number 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? Now, next slide is, it's all based on this book called Dianetics, which is the number 1 New York Times best-selling book on the mind. It's sold over, what is that figure? 22 million, and it's available in how many languages? 50 languages. So many, 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 many languages. Okay? Next one. The Dianetics book also explains a detailed description of the mind and its effects on your decisions, your thoughts and behavior, and a full explanation of how to achieve the state of clear. Okay? And the book itself, and the next one, is €20, and it's sent with free shipping. And it's there's 500 pages in the book, or a little bit more, and there's an absolutely wonderful glossary to explain any words that you might not understand. Now, the course that the book is based on, which I deliver on Friday night, The Mind Explained, is also €20, and that's for all 4 modules. Okay? And on the next one, if you get the Mind Explained course, so if you enroll on the Mind Explained course, which is €20, the book is included with that and is sent out to you free and with free shipping. Okay? So you get the book basically for free. All right? Now the next one is a special webinar night offer. So this is the Mind Explained course. So if you enroll on the course tonight, if you're interested, you get the 4 modules, which you can do at any point, the Dianetics book, and there's the 4 modules, the free shipping, and it's available in 50 languages, so you can pretty much choose whatever language you want. And it's €15. The total cost of all 4 workshops, including the book, is €15 for the whole thing. And people say to me sometimes, is it 15 euros for each workshop? No, it's not. It's 15 euros for the whole thing, including the Dianetics book. And the purpose of that is to encourage you to find out more. Because when you get through the modules, you'll know more about this subject and you'll be able to decide if it's for you and how to continue. Okay? Now, that webinar offer is open until midnight tonight. And it's kind of there to kind of give you a bit of motivation to get cracking on it, get going. So you can call that number, and those lines will be open until 10 o'clock tonight, or you can click the link in the chat in order to order it. Okay? So that link is going to be there. You don't have to go in and start clicking in it right now, unless you want to, because I'm going to leave the chat open, and it's also going to be open there for any questions and answers. Okay? So thank you very much for that, for listening to me on that one here. Folks, I hope this has been of benefit to you tonight. I really enjoyed delivering this information to you. I hope it helped you to understand a little bit more about the right career path and what you need to handle. I really, 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 really hope that anybody who's joined us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram and Zoom, that you all join me for the modules. I will be personally taking care of you to make sure that you understand every single section. After each module, you'll be able to email me for any questions that you have, anything that you want to clear up, so that you understand the information. Very, very simple stuff. We take up one subject per module. It's not too complicated. Tonight I packed in a lot of stuff, but on the modules we just take one thing and we really thrash that out so that you fully get it. Okay, folks, so I'm going to say goodnight to everybody. I'm going to say thank you very much for everybody's attention. Thank you for everybody on Facebook, YouTube and Instagram. And thank you very much for everybody on Zoom for all the examples you gave and for the participation. I'm going to say goodnight, so if you want to leave right now, that's fine. The webinar is going to be officially over as soon as I say goodbye to everybody, but I'm kind of not going to stop it. So it'll be over. And I find this very complicated every week. It's going to be over, but then I'm going to leave it open for any questions and answers for anybody that wants to hang around. And if you don't want to hang around, it's completely fine. I won't take offense. Don't worry about that at all. So, for everybody in Zoom, thank you very much for your attention. Fiona, Brian, Tobias, Paul, Fiona again, Nadine, Daphne, Kamal. Hi Kamal, didn't say hello to you earlier on. And Lisa, thank you so much for your time tonight. Have an absolutely beautiful evening. And thank you for spending this hour and a bit with me. Okay? So, goodbye to everybody who's leaving. Okay? And you can leave now if you like. Anybody who... Okay? So that's that. Done. Okay? New me coming in. Here I am. Hello again. Question and answer time. So, this segment is like about 10 minutes or so. We'll just leave it open for any questions. Any questions that you have about Dianetics or about anything that we covered tonight, please pop it into the chat. And I will take care of answering those questions for you. Violetta had to leave. Okay, no problem. Okay, Paul's there. Okay, you're very welcome. See you Friday, Paul. Yes, Kamal, you're very welcome. Kamal's gone. I missed saying goodbye to him. Daphne, great. I'm delighted that it helped you, Daphne. Thank you so much for your acknowledgement. Tobias, I'm glad to hear you liked it. Yes, Nadine, to answer your questions, you work shift work patterns, so may not be able to make it for Friday sessions. Yes, we do record these modules. So we do actually record. If you have a module or if you're going to miss the modules, you will be able to get those recordings. If you can be there in person, it's great. But if you can't, we do have a recording of the modules that you will be able to get. Okay? And also, if you reach out to Mandeep, Mandeep's the host in the session, so she'll be able to answer any particular questions that you might have on that. So yes, you will be able to get a recording of that. Okay, folks, so for the next 5-7 minutes, maybe 10 minutes max, feel free to leave if you've got your questions answered. It's absolutely no problem. If you have any specific questions on auditing, how it works, how you can apply it to the career, please pop it into the chat and I will answer that for you. In the meantime, I will tell you a little bit more about the course and how it works. Basically, I've been delivering these modules for quite a long time. When I started off this subject, as I mentioned at the beginning, the modules are based on the Dianetics book, which is an absolutely fantastic book. I came across this in the 90s, and I've read it several times. It's wonderful. It really does make sense. So, like, even getting the book as part of the module, you sign up for the module to get the book. I mean, it's got everything in it. So everything that I am going to be going over on the modules are contained in the book, and I'll expand on them. I basically simplify a couple of the key concepts to do with the subject. And so, as I mentioned, there's the 4 modules. It's usually a smaller group on Zoom. We don't really have it open to Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, and it's not live on those platforms because the Zoom is kind of easier to get participation and examples and so forth. So my commitment to people on the modules is that I answer any questions, anything that you don't understand, and I'll leave it open for absolutely anything that you want to clear up. And each module is delivered separately. So if you get modules 1 and 2, but you can't come to number 3, but you can come to number 4, it's completely fine, because I take each separate module as its own unit. You don't necessarily have to have been at number 1 and 2 to get number 3. And if you've missed number 1 and 2, or you start on number 3, you'll get them when I get to number 4, and then I come back to number 1, and then the next week I do number 2 and 3 and 4, and that's how it works. And I would say the vast majority of people who have been on the modules have found it very, very beneficial. We've got a lot of success stories from people who have actually been there, and many of those people have come in to actually become auditors themselves, to get trained on Dianetics, or to receive auditing. Obviously it's up to each individual if they want to do that, but it's really good. We run seminars as well for people who want to follow it up, so that you can come in and get some practice. And we also help to organise, if you need somebody to work with on Dianetics, where you can help to clear up stuff, then we can help to organise that as well. In fact, Mandeep and Sylvia as well actually helps with that. Okay. Tobias, I think I answered that. I didn't even see your question, but I answered your question, I think. Would you have any auditing session at some stage after the 4 modules? Yes. And in fact, when people are actually in the middle of the 4 modules, they often ask for a session. Yeah, listen, okay, session number 2, they now get, okay, I got it. Can I come in for a session? And that's fine. You can actually come in to our centre here, and we will be able to organise a session for you. Or after the 4 modules, whatever you want. So the answer is yes, Tobias, that can be done. Brian, any suggestions what to do when you're a generally capable person but can't decide which direction to go in professional life? Too many directions presented, no kids, no mortgage, no significant other, no strings. Wonderful, Brian, you've read Dianetics. Wow. Look, the only recommendation I have for you, Brian, is to get yourself some auditing. Because I don't know your personal circumstances. You might have interests in a load of different areas. You might be very, very, very competent in certain area, which is your basic purpose line, and you could be extremely successful in that area. Okay. Now, what I mentioned at the beginning, I mentioned about these areas. Where am I going to put this? I hate scribbling out my drawings, so I'm going to squash it in here somewhere. Remember, I told you that there are 4 areas that you need to have in harmony. Actually, do you know what? You've reminded me that I didn't even cover this. I said I was going to cover this. I'm glad you asked me this question. Okay, so you have these areas of survival. You want to survive for yourself, family. People usually want to be in a relationship, have kids. You know what? It's not for everybody. People generally want to create relationships with family and help kids. You know, you can do it that way. Group, mankind. Now, if there is a block on some of those areas, if there is some of those areas that you're not operating in and that you would like to, in other words, let's say you're focused completely on family and your work, but you're completely ignoring yourself, and you would absolutely love to be doing something for yourself, okay? What that usually means is that there's some baggage in that area, okay? There's some baggage sitting on top for that area. So it's very important that if you have read the book, Brian, that you start to get in, and as a very, very first step, to clear up anything that might be sitting there which would be affecting your ability to make a decision. Because you are the one which has most access to all the avenues that are available to you in life. You are the one with the most access, and you have a complete record of what you can and can't do. So you can work out that decision. But to work out that decision, you do have to be in a state where your ability to think is very clear. And of course, like for example, in the past, I got into this much more about advising people, oh, you should do this, you should do that, and you should do the other. I've gotten people through communication courses, I've gotten people through courses on how to handle their finances, I've gotten people through courses on how to handle their marriage, and these are all very, very beneficial, which give you great tips. But if that baggage is not cleared, all it takes is for you to wake up one day in a bad mood, and then you won't bother applying those basics that you learned. You just won't feel like it. And the reason you don't feel like it is because of this reactive mind. So that's what I would recommend, Brian. Brian, have you had any auditing as a question, as a matter of interest? Not yet. Okay, good. So let's turn that not yet into a yet, into a get going on it. So Brian, I'd love to have you on the modules to kind of give you a bit of a better picture of this. Honestly, Brian, what I covered tonight is just a scratch on the surface of this material. There are so many things that you can learn, about in terms of how to go about handling your finances, handling relationships, handling career, so many things that you can learn. But the primary thing that I have found that affects most people is, what mood are they in? Are they going to apply it, or are they going to bother? Is the person motivated, or does he really want to do it, and what's actually stopping him? And what I found in most cases is that once that reactive mind is cleared, you will be able to decide for yourself what to do. And you won't need somebody to come along and tell you. I have given guidance to people in all sorts of different areas, but this has been the most beneficial. What we're trying to do in Dianetics is rehabilitate people, restore them to their own confidence in their own decisions and their own ability to think. Okay, Brian, I hope that helps. You're welcome. Okay, anybody else, any questions? Who have we got left with? Brian, Tobias, Fiona, and Nadine. Anybody has any questions? We'll leave it open for another 2 minutes. I'm not going to sing a song because, again, I actually did go to music classes in secondary school, but I had lots of misunderstandings. I ran into that study barrier in music, and I don't think I ever recovered from it. So no, music is not going to be part of it, although I did dance for a while, and that was good fun. Anyway, so if there's no other questions coming in, I'll end off. I'm going to finish off with this last little story about myself. When I came across Dianetics, this was in Munich, in Germany, in the 90s. I was looking for something to help other people, not myself. I was interested in helping others. There was people that I cared about that were suffering, and I wanted something that worked, because the solutions, like if you grow up in the countryside like myself and a small town, if you look for a solution, people generally, if it's to do with your personality or how you feel, they generally steer you down a chemical road, whether that's drugs or alcohol or certain medicines that are apparently supposed to make you feel better. And it's not really, you don't really have a lot of options. So when I came across this, I thought, this is something fantastic. I hope this works. And it did work. And it worked for others that I helped and loved. And it worked for me too. Because I started, I better get some of this myself. And I benefited fantastically from it. Okay, so folks, anyway, that was my last little quick story. So I'm going to end off. Thank you so much for your attention and for hanging on and for throwing in your questions. I'm going to say goodnight to you all now, and I hope to see you on the modules, and I hope to see you again. Okay, folks, so Brian, Tobias, Fiona, and Nadine, have a beautiful evening. Have a nice cup of tea. Bye.